actually, in the beginning, we had a few scenes, like early cuts, that had a bit more exposition in them, in terms of what their relationship was and why Chris had come back from Chicago and things like that. But those felt like it really threw off the pace of the film, and that were better served to discover who these people were through observation rather than through being told.
Yeah, I don't think you needed more. I think kind of it unfolds at a really natural pace, the way it would when you're getting to know people in real life. You don't just know people like, hey, how are you? And here's my entire life story.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's something we were conscious of, and I think that's probably our preference in films, because I think so often there's a tendency to, like, from scene one, have to know who these people are, exactly who their relationship is, and I think ideally we prefer to sort of be a little patient and sort of, eventually you sort of figure that out. You don't necessarily have to know it.
It's like part of the mystery is discovering who are these people. Not just, what's this money and where's the girl and all that, but who are these people?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it, actually. Yeah.
So one of my favorite parts of the movie is the club scene, where Carlos is like, oh, come on, I play 1960s retro Latin music. Is that what it was?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm dying to know where that music came from.
Well, it's off of a compilation called Belize City Boil Up from a label called Numero Group, and they put out obscure funk and soul and R&B from the 60s through. Well, they actually have some early hip hop stuff. Too, like 80s.
A ton of stuff.
But basically, the idea behind that label is the compilations usually are focused on like local labels, like that put out 45s for a short period of time usually, and then we're completely forgotten about. So they, dig all those up, and so we've been listening to Belize City Boil Up.
It was great, and I love the whole score from Keegan, right?
Yeah.
At what point did you bring him in to compose for?
Pretty early. I mean, we sent him that one song, and I think you were emailing with him from kind of the get-go.
Yeah, Keegan is a friend of mine from high school, and he did the score for the first two films as well. And he's been really involved beyond just what his on-screen credit is. He's talked about the story and so early on we sent him a draft of the script, way before it was ready to like go out to the world. But we wanted to have Keegan know what the film was like, and we also sent him a song by this Swedish Finnish Scandinavian Finnish girl named was that her name or is that the band name?
Launa, Launau. So I think it's Launa, but yeah.
And she has it's actually really hard to describe what aesthetic it is, but it's the sounds are almost inspired by nature a little bit, and kind of drippy, has a drippy water kind of feeling, and also uses some non-traditional instruments. And so we sent that to Keegan, and Keegan and I started talking about the idea of using non-traditional instruments for this score, because we knew we needed to do something different than we've done on the previous films, which are just piano, very simple. But we also didn't want to just imitate a typical genre score. And so Keegan really got going on that, and we started having a lot of fun coming up with, what the palette of sounds was going to be, and he would send us stuff that would just sample just ideas of the kind of thing that he was going to try.
So it sounds like that was another element of the collaboration, of getting
definitely.
the tone and the feel of the film.
Yeah.
And I think the music has a huge impact.
Yeah, I definitely think it sets the tone of the film.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And one of the songs he sent us early on turned out to be the piece that's over the end credits now, a version of that. And I remember walking around Brooklyn, which is where we lived at the time, and then after that, driving around Portland and listening to it, and kind of that setting the mood, or in a weird way, it almost scored our location scouting, as we're driving around Portland, and so that was really great. And I think it's really important to bring people in early if possible, because they, I think, then have a better understanding of what the project is, and we can talk about things beyond just music. And I think that getting everyone involved gets all the best ideas on the table, and
it makes the final product a total collaboration of everyone.
Yeah.
Rather than, all right, we know everything, and now we're going to bring you in just for the end.
Yeah.
People really get to dive deep into what they're making.
Yeah, and then in terms of recording the actual, the final product, Keegan would be, when we were editing in Brooklyn, Keegan would be in the room with us, and he'd be over to one side, and we would give him the scene, and he would be working on something, sort of like a rough version of it, and then he would send it to us. We'd put it under the scene, and so he was, I think, in the room with us for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Working that way.
Yeah. So it wasn't like, okay, here's the finished film. Now let's score it. It was more of a process of being involved in the actual editing of the film, trying to fit the two things together. And so I think that was a really effective way to do it.
So when you guys were shooting, how long was your shoot? How many days?
20 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was not nearly
How
enough
was that?
time.
Did you guys come across any big struggles or issues, or was it smooth?
It was always just time. I mean, as it often is. But just because we had, we probably had about 2 locations a day, and a lot of stuff. Actually, the most challenging thing, surprisingly, I think we found out, was the stuff in the apartment.
Yeah.
Just because it was such a small space, and we had so many little scenes in there. But obviously, you have to relight just a little bit for every scene, and there was very little room. And so, it was a challenge to figure out how to light it without, the lights and the C-stands, the light stands being obtrusive for the actors. And it got very hot in there as well. In fact, it's so hot that the camera actually shut down for
I've been in similar situations.
Yeah. It felt like, those puzzles where there's one square that's blank and then you slide little squares around to make the picture. That's anytime we move something in there, that's how it felt. It's like moving one thing here and trying to, redress the set to look okay in this direction, and also trying to find ways to make the apartment look not different, but try and find different looks, because there's so many scenes in there. We didn't want them all to look exactly the same. And,
well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I think in general production went pretty smoothly, actually, and I mean, we knew we had limited financial resources, so I mean, one thing that's free is just advanced planning, which sounds obvious, but I think it can be really tempting when you're kind of going crazy, trying to just figure out how to make each day happen, to say, okay, we got to go to sleep, but I mean, yeah, I mean, there were nights when we'd get 2 hours of sleep, night after night, and so, but I think we knew that if we didn't take that extra 2 hours to make really sure that we knew what the shot list was, that we knew what the problems we were going to face the next day were.
You'd pay for it later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that we didn't have that extra time to say, okay, well, we'll push this scene to later, and that just wasn't an option for us.
Yeah, and I think that we were talking earlier. I think that the playing's also important, because obviously the whole process of making a movie is like making 1,000 decisions a day, and sometimes it's like you can shoot this place for 12 hours. Maybe it's not the perfect location or the perfect situation, but you have 12 hours. Well, you can shoot this place for 6 hours, and it's a great location, but you're going to have to rush, and making those decisions in the moment. Sometimes I think you can get caught up in what you need right now and not see the larger picture, and then the next day you're limited because of the decision you made the day before. So I think if you can think that out in advance and discuss, figure out which decision ultimately serves the larger goal, I think that's really important.
Well, that's very wise.
Yeah.